We all know what's on the United States' nuclear supercarriers, fighter planes taking off and landing every 30 seconds. But what is not so well known is that the United States has a rule that must always be followed. The first and last aircraft to take off and land must be helicopters. But it's probably not what you're imagining, so let's answer it. In the third video of this series about aircraft carriers, we saw how a fighter jet lands. As we saw, once they land, they apply full engine power in case they miss the cable, allowing them to keep flying. But here's where the tricky question comes in. What would happen if, for any reason, a plane had an accident and fell into the water? This has occurred multiple times to rescue pilots who crash into the water. During deck operations, a helicopter flies parallel to the ship. The main helicopter used on American supercarriers is the SH-60 and its variants. Helicopters are versatile aircraft used for various tasks on aircraft carriers, making them multi-purpose vehicles. As explained in the second video of this aircraft carrier series, takeoffs and landings typically occur in batches. And the first aircraft to take off from an aircraft carrier is always a helicopter. This is with the aim of being already in the air in case there is an accident with a plane that is landing or taking off. Really, it's extremely unlikely that anything will happen as the Navy's procedures are very refined. But still, just in case, it has been shown that a quick response to save the pilot who has fallen into the water exponentially increases their chances of survival. Whenever planes operate on aircraft carriers, a helicopter flies in parallel. Always, absolutely always.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's always a helicopter being shot at while they're... Okay, so it's you.
The first to take off and the last to land, so they can't actually take off until we take off, really?
Always.
Always, yeah.
If you remember the landing pattern explained in the third video of the list, we saw that planes always make a circuit to the left of the aircraft carrier. That's why helicopters should position themselves on the right side of the ship. In this way, they will not interfere with those who are landing or those who are taking off. Be cautious, as planes are also orbiting the ship preparing to land shortly. As you can see, an aircraft carrier makes the surrounding airspace terribly crowded. In the rescue helicopter, there are always 2 pilots and several swimmers. Their name in English is swimmers. The pilot's uniform is insane, with a vest weighing about 44 pounds and a heavy helmet. I say this from personal experience as I was able to put it on. It seems crazy to me that pilots have to wear it for so many hours while flying. The helmet has a head-up display visor, like the ones Iron Man wears in the movies that provide information to the pilots. In this way, the essential information of the helicopter appears on their visor. These helmets cost over $100,000 each, which may seem excessive. But the reality is that it takes a lot of workload off the pilots, allowing them to focus on what's really important, carrying out the mission. The swimmers who are behind are ready to jump into the water from the helicopter and save the life of someone who is unconscious, sinking. When rescuing an accident victim, the situation can be very serious. Helicopters also transport material during refueling operations. American aircraft carriers use nuclear reactors, which means they never need to refuel. And thanks to this, the ship will never need to stop at a port because this would make it an easy target. The problem is that the planes inside do need fuel. That's why from time to time, a refueling ship aligns itself with the aircraft carrier to transfer fuel for the planes. During this time, they also provide food, parts, or clothing. This task is typically done by a helicopter transferring the cargo between ships. Another task that helicopters carry out is submarine hunting. They carry a sonar that is lowered and emits signals to detect if they bounce off any object. In this way, it is possible to analyze around the area if there is any potential enemy or not. If there is, the helicopter could approach it, knowing where it is, and fire a torpedo. Or it could inform the aircraft carrier or any other ship in the combat battalion so that someone else is in charge of destroying it. In case an unidentified ship approaches the aircraft carrier, the first to go see who it is will be a helicopter, as they can go quite fast and then remain static from a safe height. Helicopters can identify who is on a boat and their intentions. They can also be heavily armed. So if that ship were an enemy, could it be neutralized before it got close enough to the aircraft carrier to be a threat? Another key role is transporting troops for land missions. The helicopter could take a team of Navy SEALs to an inland area to carry out the corresponding task. There's a version of the SH-60 designed for troop transport. This helicopter weighs very little so that all the weight of the helicopter is from the people who are going to be on board. As you can see, Navy pilots must be extremely well prepared due to the numerous tasks they have. Let's not forget where they are flying. For example, the rescue helicopter is always just a few meters from the water. A miscalculated maneuver could result in rescuers needing to be rescued themselves in the event of an accident. Helicopters can perform auto-rotation, a maneuver that allows controlled descent if they lose power. I have an upcoming video where I'll explain this maneuver in detail. But I had been wondering for a long time if in case of an engine failure, helicopters could perform an auto-rotation maneuver to the surface of the ship.
It all depends on where you're at. If you're in a situation where you have enough altitude and you're close enough to the ship that you could make an auto rotation and that the deck is in, yeah.
It's like with no planes and so on.
If they're mid-launch and recovery, maybe if you called Mayday, you know, they would wave people off and stuff like that. But most of the time we're going into the water.
As you can see, they would most likely go straight into the sea, because when the helicopter auto-rotates, it doesn't descend precisely in a controlled manner at a specific point. Doing this on an aircraft carrier could wreck many expensive planes. That's why helicopter pilots are trained on how to escape a situation where the helicopter is in the water. But this is much more dangerous and critical than it may seem.
Helicopters. When they hit the water, they basically
Immediately flip.
Over.
I've seen videos.
Yeah, so in the Hello Dunker, it's something you have to do pretty consistently. There's a timeline, you have to do it to keep your qualifications. This
is the water tank we talked about. The goal is for the pilots to know how to orient themselves and get out of that situation if it occurs. Another highly dangerous situation would be if the helicopter was running low on fuel. This could happen if the helicopter was hit by a bullet and a leak was generated in the fuel tank.
So now we're completely running out of fuel. For whatever reason, they have nowhere to go. We are in the middle of the ocean. Now we are in a situation
Of such like a
agreement. We are going to have to do a controlled shower. I'm gonna push all my passengers. I'm gonna push, we have a small plane that we can launch there, but now is the time for the pilots to get out. So everyone has different thoughts on how they would do that. And some people say can you grab a deployment or autopilot a deployment? And that's here.
Would you jump? Wow. So some
People are like, okay, I'm gonna put it here. So this is this here. This tells your altitude. So, you'll be fine. We're gonna be 20 feet because that
is not
too high to jump or whatever, 20 feet. And then we won't have lateral speed. We're going
to keep running
straight, and I'm gonna have like 20 or 10 sliding notes towards
forward like that.
So we're just sliding slowly, and then the person here is gonna have to be careful not to break the cyclist
And try.
to jump and try to jump.
But some
People say I'm not drinking the water. Right to the water. I've been in the Helo Dunker. That's how I've trained. I've never trained to jump out of a...
moving helicopter. Wow, that makes sense, but you're risking your life going to water.
Yeah, and so people as the aircraft commander, let's go.
That some pilots think it would be better to jump from the helicopter, and others believe it would be better to get out of the helicopter once it was already in the water. Because the latter is what they have been trained for. At this point, let me ask you, what do you think you would do in that situation if you were a helicopter pilot? Would you jump or go to the water? Thank you very much for watching this video, and remember that you have up to this moment 5 super complete videos about aircraft carriers. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time.